Chapter 1.4 Color Part 2. We looked at a couple different color wheels. I'm not going to get into too much about the other ones. Mainly for painting, our subtractive color is what we want to think about. Color wheels can be helpful. And we're going to look at two things: complementary and analogous color. Complementary color is opposite, which means it's on the other side of the color wheel. And then when they're mixed, they get grayer. It gets to be like a purpley gray usually, and then it goes sort of blackish. True black is usually a separate color, and it's purchased separately with paint pigments, but it gets kind of a gray black. That's the theory anyway. When they're side by side, they intensify one another, but their wavelengths are very different, and it creates the illusion of vibrating. So we're going to look at some examples of complementary colors. And the way I usually talk about this is Christmas, Lakers, and Broncos. Now that isn't all of the complementary colors, but that gives you a sense of three of the main ones that get used a lot. And the reason we use them in sports or other holidays or things that we want to show a lot of intensity or attention is because of the vibration of the two against each other. So it's a little bit more dramatic. It's got a punch or a pop to it, if that makes sense. So the complementaries are opposite. This is primary and secondary analogous over here, and these are complements over here, okay? So the analogous colors are going to be the ones near each other. They're not dramatically vibrating against one another. So this is red to orange. This would be yellow to orange. Those are some simple examples. We're going to look at a few more. Complementary colors, like say for instance, we're going to bring out somebody's eye color like a blue. So you would want to use like an orange or a yellow. Remember we were talking about Broncos coloration for sports teams. Like a blue against an orange, that makes the eyes stand out more. Now these aren't exactly the same as regular paint colors. Every medium is different. Makeup would be different than oil or acrylic paint and chalk pastel or ink or different things. So it's always a little bit of a shift, but basically, this is the basic idea, that you'd use like a purple against a green for complementary colors. Our art example here is 1.4.13, Frederick Edwin Church, Twilight in the Wilderness. Excuse me, and he is showing a sunset, and he wants drama. So if he wants a dramatic look to the piece, he's going to use orange and yellow against green. So we have this intense pop here between these two colors at opposite ends of the color spectrum, and the trees as well, we could include that. So we're seeing this dramatic sunset, and it's dramatic, it's emotional. The vibration or the tension between these two colors, the dark orange and the green, creates tension. So when we're using analogous colors, they're adjacent to each other on the color wheel. Remember, this refers to the color wheel itself and the way they operate. So they're similar in wavelength, and sometimes we're creating unity and harmony and peaceful look to an artwork. It all really depends on the artist's intent, and quite often artists don't think, I would say they more likely than not don't think about this consciously, but they are creating something that conveys calmness through the use of blue and greens and yellows, like a greenish yellow that's all analogous color. So more in the artwork that's done, graphic design in particular, with advertising, they're specifically trying to manipulate the viewer. With Mary Cassatt, this is an early Impressionist painting, 1893. She wants the viewer to be calm and relaxed, but it's not as much of a whole-scale, purposeful manipulation, if that makes sense. It's kind of done intuitively or by feel. Same thing with our Frederick Edwin Church. He's creating drama. He isn't necessarily thinking, oh, I'm going to put these two colors next to each other. He's just doing it because he knows that that looks and feels more dramatic. This has a sense of calm. One of the reasons that we see blue as calm is exactly for this reason that we're seeing here. There's water here. Even when we see it on a non-water related object, we see it on a shirt or, wherever we see blue, we kind of relax. And same thing with dark green. Those two things indicate life. We know that there's water that we're going to be able to drink, but even if this is at sea, we still have that feeling, if that makes sense, which that water isn't drinkable, but just the same, we have that feeling. Green also works that way. If you remember the drought, everybody was asked to rip out their lawns initially, and later they did some research and they realized that psychologically that deep green, looking at it, calms people down. And part of the reason the deep green calms us down is because we're hunter-gatherers and we used to go out and hunt animals, and we know when we see green, which is grass, that there's animals feeding there and that we have a food source. So blue and green are calming. It's very primal, not primary necessarily, but primal urge within us to understand those colors. Okay, so she's one of the few female impressionists, by the way, and they shared some interest in the effects of light and color. The next thing we're going to get into, I'm going to stop here.